Hi, my name is Ehsan, and in this video I'm going to show you how to start writing your research paper. And if we go to the list of videos that I have on this topic, on the topic of research paper, this is video number 9. This is just a snapshot of the structure of a research paper and the topics that every single of these are going to cover. I'm going to show you these in the future videos and explain them in details. So every single step that you see here, every single part from the title all the way to the supplementary information will have its own dedicated video. So I'm not going to go through these questions that I have written here or the information. You can pause the video and read it on your own, but I just wanted to have here so your mind is ready for the future videos. You can pause and read that. Now let's go through the steps of writing a research paper. Again, this is just a typical structure of a research paper. But the way we write the paper is not starting from the top going all the way to the supplementary information. No. The way we start writing the research paper is we start from the results and discussion section. And specifically, we start from the figures and tables. So the data we get, we start writing the research paper based on that. This is how this is done. You have the objectives for your project and you go and do the experiment, and as you conduct those experiments you get some results, right? You get some figures, you get some tables, and for each table or figure you can write just one sentence, say what's the main point of this. And that's just the beginning of going through all these sections. We start from the results and discussion and go to the method and then conclusion, then introduction, references, abstract, title, and so on and so forth. So you go all the way to the supplementary information. And as I said, we are going to have a dedicated video for each step. And just as a reminder, if you recall, we had an order for reading a paper. Now we are finding out an order for writing a paper. So on the left you can see I had a video for this one, and I said you can stop at any point. So you start from the title, you go down, and at any point you feel this paper is not relevant, you can stop. And on the right you see the order of writing. So we have an order for reading a paper and an order for writing a paper. So now you know both. But how do we start writing a paper? Here I'm showing you one example that I got from ACS. On the top you see it's a draft of a paper, and on the bottom you will see the same paper that has been published by this author. So they have shared it with us. It was a part of the ACS writing research paper. So on the top, I'm going to zoom in. You see they have done the research and they have some objectives. And on the results and discussion, for instance, they said, okay, 3.1, this is blah, blah, whatever that is research they are conducting. And they got this figure out of that experiment that they were doing. And in a few sentences, they wrote what's the main point of this figure. And they have done this for the other figures as well. And then this is their second objectives that they had, and so on and so forth. And once this is done, then they went back probably and said, okay, now what we want to have in the experimental section, what we want to have into the in conclusion, and what we want to have in the introduction. Once this is done, now they are going to go ahead and write the paper. And if I go to the next slide here, you will see I have color coded these so it's easy to follow. They have had 5 things that they wanted to discuss, and if you go to the actual paper, the introduction, you will see they have covered them in details, right? So they wanted to start with the importance of olefin paraffin separation and current separation method, and they started to talk about that. But here they have had it in just one sentence. So it's like you have some bullet points and then you start to explain it in detail. So this is how the introduction is done. Now if I go to the next slide, which is the experimental section, now they have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections they want to explain. And again, I have color coded them, and you see they are matched. So I'm going to zoom here. You can take a screenshot. By the way, I'm going to put the these two papers, not like the draft and the actual paper, in the link in the description, so you can download it and read it on your own. So this basically makes writing the paper easy, because here you just put some bullet points, and then once it's ready to write the paper, you can go and expand on that. And the most important part is the results and discussion. This is very important because this is basically the gist of the paper, right? So results and discussion, they had a 3.1 section and a 3.2. And if you go to their paper, you can see they have explained those two sections in detail. They had only 1 or 2 figures for each part, and they just expand on top of that. But there's another thing here. You see in the draft, they had only 2 sections, but in the actual paper, they have 4. So why that happens? Again, they probably have done the research, and through the experiment, they found they can do, more research on some of the topics, and they defined a few other objectives, and they did it probably, or they probably found something, some experiments, and they just conducted and got the results and added to the results and discussion. So these two, while it was not part of the draft or the objectives that they have had for this research, but after doing the research, they found it and just added to the paper. And finally, the conclusion, they have some bullet points, and they have expand on top of that, and the acknowledgements and the rest of the paper. This is just a quick way of explaining what goes into the mind of the researchers when it comes to writing a paper. They have a draft, a big idea. For each part, they have a few bullet points, and definitely they have started from the research and discussion, and they keep adding the figures and tables and write a few sentences so they know what they want to discuss and get the results out of that, and then just keep doing the experiments, right? It's not like they come with a nice title and then they start to write the abstract and then they go to the introduction. No, this is not gonna work. Why? Because through the experiments, something might change. Something might doesn't make sense. They have to change the objectives. So that will change the title. That will change the abstract and the introduction. So everything is linked to the results and discussion that you get. So you can't go with a title first and the introduction and abstract. No, that's not how this is gonna work. Now let's go to our own example, the bi-colored apple. For that, we had a few objectives, if you remember from the previous video, and I have written all of those here as one bullet point for the results and discussion. Every objective now has its own section, and as you remember, some of these, the size variation, for instance, it was just we found it while we were doing the experiment. And I have written a few things, like a few sentences for each part that we want to discuss, because we already have the results and now we want to expand on that. Writing a research paper is a huge task. You can't sit down and finish it in one go, and you have to break it down to small tasks, small objectives and sections, do the experiment, and as you do, keep adding. Now at the end you will have a story to explain. This is the way we write a research paper. And keep in mind, when you want to do a research and you want to publish it in a specific journal, let's say you already know which journal you want to publish it to, I will show you in the future videos how to select a journal. If you already know, it's better to go and read the guide for authors in that website. Every single journal has that. Why you need to do that? Because they might have a specific format or section that if you know beforehand, before they start to draft it, it will help you. So I highly recommend doing that if you already know. If you don't know, it's fine. You can stick with the sections that I explained, and you can refine it once you are done with the research. And just a few last tips when you write your research paper. One, your research paper is a story, and every story has to resonate with the readers, right? So we are scientific readers, but still we appreciate if you are honest. If you got a result unexpected, it's better to say it was unexpected. Or if something failed and you might to scrap it and just hide it and don't mention it, I think that's not a good thing. It's better to report the failures, not all of them. Don't report all the failures, because that would be a paper on its own. If you could write a paper on the failures for a project, that would be a 600 pages, paper. But it's fine to report a few failures and how that, a specific failure ended up to change and refine that experiment to get something better out of it. So that's one thing. The other tip that I want to share is just don't dump all the data and without any connection between them. It's better to have a story and link all of these and not just add everything there and just try to say we have done a lot, right? Even if you have done some experiments and you have a result, and that result doesn't have any connection with what you have shared already, doesn't attach, or you can stitch this to the puzzle of the current study that you are doing, just scrap it for now. You don't have to report all the things. You just have to report a nice story, right? Something that makes sense. And it's also good to explain about like the future direction of this research that you are doing. I think that also helps the readers how this research will end up in the future, will help what's the direction for that research. And that's all I want to say in this video. If we go to the slide that I have here, you see from the next video I'm going to start from the results and discussion section and go all the way to the supplementary information. So each one of these sections will have its own video, and I'm gonna start from the results and discussion, not from the title, and you know why. And with that, yeah, I'm gonna say bye for now. See you in the next video.